Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
How much you weigh, Slip? And you weighed 168 pounds. You were beautiful. You could have been another Billy Kahn. That skunk we got you for the manager, he brought you along too fast.
It wasn't him, Charlie. It was you. You remember that night in the garden? You came down my dressing room and said, "Kid, this ain't your night. We're going for the price on Wilson." You remember that? This ain't your night. My night, I could have taken Wilson apart. So what happens? He gets the title shot outdoors in a ballpark, and what do I get? A one-way ticket to Palookaville. You was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked out for me a little bit. You should have taken care of me just a little bit so I wouldn't have to take them dives for the short-end money.
Well, I had some bets down for you. You saw some money.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, Tony Walker.
If you got it, you don't need it. If you need it, you don't got it. You don't get it, shame on you. Funny, funny, funny what money can do. Them that have it get more of it. The less they need it, the more they love it. And it sticks to them like glue. Funny, funny, funny what money can do.
What an amazing scene from the movie On the Waterfront, filmed back in the 50s with Marlon Brando as the famous boxer and Rod Steiger as his manager. And maybe you feel like that right now. Maybe you feel like rather than your advisor taking you out at a friendly night at the ballpark and taking your money with you, instead you're heading to Palookaville, wherever that is. It's just a great line. The other thing, too, about that scene with Rod Steiger and Marlon Brando is blaming his manager, Rod Steiger, blamed somebody else for the adversity that Marlon Brando missed out on because he did not let him fight one of the fights. It was just really an interesting scene. But anyway, we're recording this show on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. And boy, are we talking about woulda, shoulda, coulda. Here we are, the stock market as of today. It is really on that predictable roller coaster ride, and it's been going up, and all of a sudden you're at the top, and right before you say there it goes down. Many of you savers out there probably experienced this in 2008. I remember advising people back in 2008, and we didn't know what it was going to do, but I was advising people then, hey, just in case we hit a free fall, which later it did, dropping 40%, but back then I said, just in case we hit a free fall, just like Marlon Brando in that scene where he says, I could have been somebody, can we not consider taking some of these winnings off the table? In the end, we can't go back, folks. Here's the point you've got to remember with time. We've only got a limited amount of time on this earth. There's a lot of things out of our control. And just like Marlon Brando, you can think about the past all you want, but you cannot change the past, nor former decisions about the past, but you can change the future. You really can. You can't predict the future necessarily, but on this show, we're going to give you options so you won't fall into this woulda, coulda, shoulda syndrome that many of you fell into back in 2008. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. I am the author and creator of the Worry-Free Retirement, Tony Walker, and with us helping produce the show in the studio up here in Louisville is America's favorite financial sidekick, Aaron Orander, and his newly found sidekick, Matt Stebbins, just doing a wonderful job with the show. And the theme of this show, it's actually going to be taken from my book, Don't Follow the Herd. That book was published shortly after 2008. I started working on it, actually published 2010. It did take a year or so to write that book, but we're going to deal with, in the limited amount of time, in fact, we're probably going to continue this in the next show. We'll just see how time goes. But we're going to talk about the 7 costly mistakes savers make with their money, and yes, how to avoid them. Really what we're talking about avoiding is a woulda, shoulda, coulda attitude when we look back and think, oh man, if you're a saver, hopefully you're sitting there saying, why did I have so much money in the market? And now if you've learned your lesson, especially folks, especially if you're retired or approaching retirement, surely to goodness you're not going to potentially make that mistake again. In that clip, it's funny, if you keep watching that clip, I would encourage you to go to YouTube and just type in Marlon Brando scene with Rod Steiger on the waterfront or something like that. Could have been somebody. It'll pop up. But at the end, it's kind of similar to some of you that come in to talk to me. You've been to a financial advisor or your financial institution, especially after 2008, and the market has crashed, let's say, and you go back to your advisor or you contact the 1-800 number on your 401k statement, and really, they kind of just give you that Rod Steiger deal where he plops a gun into Marlon Brando's lap. In other words, the folks are after Marlon Brando. He gives him a gun and he says, you might want to take this. You might need it. I mean, kind of like the financial world saying, hang in there. We don't really know what to tell you to do. That's just part of the market, and you're going to have to deal with potential villains out there. Last night, I had quite a few appointments yesterday. I was in the office till 8 o'clock last night, meeting with a gentleman, a prospective client, and he wanted me to really look at all of his statements. And over the years, he's tried to go back to his broker in a nice way, tried to understand the fees, tried to understand why he doesn't trade money certain times, just really, really frustrated. And he finally said, Tony, I think I'm just going to give you guys a shot at it. I can't figure out what he's charging. The last time I was in there, I started questioning him, and he said, you probably just, the advisor told him you probably just need to move your money somewhere else. Kind of like, good luck, don't question me. And I'm thinking, as a fiduciary, my job really is not only to provide you answers to your questions, but to encourage you to ask questions, not only of me, but our philosophy, how we handle things, what we do, how we do it, how we get paid. Incidentally, Matt is in charge of our analytics on our website, and I would encourage you to go to that page. It's a very popular page. It's how we get paid. You go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Then, assuming you have an advisor, after you read how we get paid, go ask them how they get paid. Specifically with our new Charles Schwab platform in particular, our flat fee, which there's no minimums for this account, is 0.6%. Now, you compare that to the average money management fee of 1.5%. We'll do the math real quick. If you have $500,000, that's, let's see, that would be $7,500 a year you're going to pay that money manager, whether you make money or not, all right? With our platform, it would be $3,000. So you're talking about annual, every year that is, on a $500,000 account in that example, $4,500 a year in fee savings alone. I mean, that's a lot of money. And as we like to talk about on the Worry-Free Retirement, the more money you can keep in your pocket, the higher your guaranteed return. Hope that makes sense. Let me repeat that again. The more money you can keep in your pocket, the higher your guaranteed rate of return. Because if you don't keep that money in your pocket, let's say it's out in the market, or let's say you're paying taxes, or you're paying all these fees, not only are you losing money on the money you could have made, that's called opportunity cost, but you're also losing the money that's literally in the account. You're making nothing on that money because it's going out the back door. So these costly mistakes are huge, and we don't want to run into, as best we can, having a Marlon Brando moment and looking back and saying, I could have been somebody. So what do? Well, when I return, again, in the allotted amount of time, there's 7 costly mistakes that I cover in the book, Don't Follow the Herd. We probably won't get to all those today, but you need to really listen up because this is some good stuff. I'm going to help you fight this fight. That's the thing. You know who your opponents are? Your opponents are those people out there who are after your money and who, quite frankly, are not that concerned about how much they give you back. That's the real world, folks. So if we're going to jump in the financial ring, you need a financial manager who understands how to fight the good fight, and it's got to start with avoiding mistakes that everybody tends to be making. You're listening to The Worry for Retirement. I'll be right back. Tired of getting up every day and heading off to work with no end in sight? I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and I've helped lots of people retire much sooner than they ever thought possible, and maybe I can help you do the same.
If you're over the age of 50 and have at least $250,000 to invest, schedule your free meeting with Tony to see if you can retire sooner than you think. Simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and let's play the very end of that famous clip, Aaron, with Marlon Brando and Rod Steiger in the On the Waterfront movie back in the 50s. Just the very end of it. Let her rip.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
And if you're just now joining us, folks, you are listening to the Worry-Free Retirement, and we're talking about the woulda, coulda, shoulda syndrome, and I think that's what Marlon Brando was feeling like when he looked back over his past. And kind of the theme is we can't change the past, but we can sure learn from it. And again, folks, let me preface this. We are recording the show on October 30th, 2018. The market is all over the place. I have no clue what the stock market is going to do in the future. And here's the key. Neither do any of the financial, quote, experts. Nobody knows what the market's going to do. But that's the whole point. If you're a saver, if you're listening to this show and you're more concerned about the return of your money than on it, then you need to listen closely, because if you've got all your money stockpiled in the market in your 401k or some brokerage account, and especially if you're retired or nearing retirement, I mean, folks, that's ludicrous. So we don't want to have another woulda, shoulda, coulda moment like a lot of people did after 2008 when the market crashed. So what can we do? What are some of the common mistakes that savers are making with their money? There's 7 of them I highlight in my book, Don't Follow the Herd. Incidentally, that book is available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Again, it's just simply called Don't Follow the Herd by Tony Walker. A great book, and a lot of people who don't really understand finances have told me, Tony, that's the easiest book in the world to understand. I love that book, and I think you'll find that it's very easy to read. But so what I'm going to do, I'm literally flipping through the pages here, and I'm going to go, so there's 7 common mistakes. Incidentally, if you want to watch the TV show, The Worry-Free Retirement, we're going to graphically diagram these. It's pretty good stuff. We're in major markets in Bowling Green and Louisville, Kentucky. If you want to find out the listings of the various TV shows, it's a 30-minute show. Just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and scroll there and find that particular icon. Okay, mistake number 1, paying taxes on the same dollar more than once. Now, what am I talking about here? Paying taxes on the same dollar more than once. So really, you've got to understand, folks, that there's 2 types of taxations out there on money that the government has established. There's accounts that are classified as non-qualified. Non-qualified, that means they're not qualified with the government for any special tax treatment. Let me give you an example of a non-qualified account. You work hard, you make your money, your take-home pay that month is $3,000 or whatever it is. You know, you get your paycheck stub, all those deductions come out, and it says $3,000. And let's say out of that $3,000, you take $2,500 and you have to live on it. You take the other $500 and you just put it in the savings account, or maybe you buy a growth mutual fund or whatever. And you keep doing that month in and month out, and before you know it, you've got a nice little sum of money. It's already been taxed, or so you think. So let's say it's 30, let's say I'll do the math so I can do the math quicker. Let's say you've got $100,000 saved up in a, let's use the example of a stock. I had somebody in that's got a whole lot of money in what we call non-qualified stock with one company. So you've got it saved up and it's $100,000, and that stock is paying a dividend. And just for illustrative purposes, that dividend each year is about 3%. So that means the company, the issuance of the stock, is paying you $3,000 on that $100,000. And you've been told that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, so you just tell the person that's holding the stock for you to just reinvest the dividends. Many people do this. In other words, you don't take the dividend out because you don't need the money. So you think, well, this is great because the $3,000 of dividends goes back in to the stock to purchase more stock. And on the surface, that is true. There's a problem, though. If we were in a perfect world and we didn't have compound interest and compound taxes, that'd be a great strategy. The problem is each year, as that dividend is claimed, again, we're talking about non-qualified accounts, you have to pay taxes on it. So you don't get any money, but you do get a 1099 that you have to turn into your accountant that $3,000, let's say you're in a 20% tax bracket, you got to pay $600. Now, where's that money going to come from? The nice person holding the stock doesn't remind you to, hey, I'm going to sell some shares of stock so you can get your $600. No, that $600 comes out of your pocket. And you probably didn't realize that, did you? So what happens is you keep paying tax over and over and over. Not only does the tax keep going up, but the tax keeps compounding with lost opportunity costs. So it's a disastrous result. And you might say, well, how do I avoid that? Well, we need to talk, and I can show you. If you have a non-qualified account, let me show you a strategy where we can try to flatten those taxes. Why would we want increasing taxes when we can flatten them? So again, if you've got an account like that and you want to meet in person to learn how to avoid that mistake, be happy to do that. You just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started. And when you contact us, just say, I want to talk about a flat tax strategy rather than all these compound interest. So that's the first type of tax. First mistake, is paying taxes on the same dollar more than once. Okay, mistake number 2. I love this one. Walking by blind faith. Not faith, walking in faith, walking by blind faith. A gentleman wrote a book, I think his last name was Winslow, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, literally the title of that book, I read it years ago. It's a good one, folks. It's a good read. It's called Blind Faith. And what he diagnoses is this phenomenon, and maybe this is why there's so many woulda, shoulda, couldas out there, but this phenomenon where you work hard, you make all this money, right? You work really, really hard to create this money, and then without knowing anything anybody's doing with the money, you just blindly turn it over to people. And you have faith in them, not really knowing what the heck they're doing. This kind of reminds me of the 401k. Now, again, I'm preface this. We're not dogging the 401k. We're not telling you not to do a 401k, but think of what you're doing with that 401k. You're blindly socking away all this money. You really have no idea what you're picking, these funds. Most of you admit to me, you say, Tony, I don't know. I feel like I'm just throwing darts at a dartboard, or feel like I just walked into a Japanese restaurant and I'm looking at a sushi menu. I don't know what to do. But what you're doing is you're blindly turning over money to someone who's managing it. In many cases, you have no idea what the fees are. Down the road, you have no idea how much the tax tumor is going to be that the government's going to require of you. You have no much idea how much risk is involved. And lastly, here's the real sad part. Assuming, let's say, you're in your 30s or 40s or early 50s, the money's locked up in the 401k. You can't even get access to it unless you want to borrow the money out, which is not a great deal. So that would just be one example, but there's tons of examples out there, and maybe that's you. Maybe you're sitting there saying, Tony, maybe that's the problem. Maybe I'm just blindly throwing my money into stuff when I have no clue what's involved. So if you're suffering from blind faith, the way you overcome blind faith is you have to have someone that you trust. And the way you do that, there's a couple of things you can do. The first thing, when you're trying to talk to an advisor, if you're interviewing advisors, first thing you want to know is how long have they been in business? That's the first thing. The second thing you want to know is what are they rated by the Better Business Bureau? We've been A+ rated for years, but that's important. The third thing you want to know is, are these people fiduciaries? Now, the thing with the fiduciary, you got to be careful. I read an article the other day that someone who is a fiduciary was ripping off their clients left and right. Just because somebody's a fiduciary, doesn't mean they're going to actually work in your best interest. They're just saying they will, and they've documented they will. But the proof's in the pudding, folks. Here's how you tell if you've got a real fiduciary. Is that person, the original fiduciary, is that person going to be meeting with you from here on out? Or once you turn their money over to them, are they going to just delegate you to a young hireling out there? All right? Are they also going to be willing to turn over their staff to you, to have access to their staff? And are those staff that you're going to be having access to over the years well-trained in retirement planning? And then finally, is that fiduciary going to show you exactly how they get paid? This is really important because a lot of times they really still don't ever get into that. The last thing people seem to want to talk about is how they get paid. So we are fully transparent. We'll be happy to share with you how we work and how we get paid. And quite frankly, we know that the more we charge, the less you make. This is why we've set our fees so low through our Charles Schwab platform so that you can have confidence that we're doing the best we can, but at the same time charging you a very reasonable fee for all the services we offer. All right, number 3, I can already tell, Aaron, make a note of this whenever we end because we've got a few more closing remarks after this. These 7 costly mistakes, folks, we'll continue them next week, but let's go to mistake number 3. This is a great illustration. In the book, it literally says, risking the cow instead of the milk. And there's an old fable, an old story. Years ago, I read this my parents read this to me as a kid. I need to drag this out. But basically, it's the story of the goose that laid the golden egg. And since the book was about cows, I couldn't all of a sudden introduce a goose into this, but I think it's a better illustration because many of you remember this old story. Let's share it with you just in case you haven't, all right? Talking about a woulda, shoulda, coulda moment. So apparently there's a farmer, and the story goes something like this. He's got a goose, and he goes out to the barn to check on the goose, and the goose has laid an egg that is not just an egg, but is golden in color. So the farmer is curious and has never seen an egg that's gold, so he just by chance says, well, I think I'll take it to the goldsmith in town and just see what this thing is. So he notices the egg is very, very heavy. He hauls it off to the goldsmith in town. The goldsmith examines this and says, Farmer Brown, this is solid gold. This is worth thousands of dollars. So Farmer Brown is elated. He cashes it in. He spends the money on some frivolous stuff, and he thinks, well, this is great because this goose surely will lay another golden egg tomorrow. So he anxiously goes to bed, wakes up first thing in the morning, runs out to the barn, checks under the goose. You know the rest of the story, don't you, Aaron? What's there? Golden egg. Aaron's on top of it today. Another golden egg. He verifies it with the goldsmith again. He cashes it in. It's worth thousands of dollars. He spends it. He does this day in and day out, and boy, he and Mrs. Farmer Brown, they're living the high life. Well, guess what happens with Farmer Brown one day? He thinks, now wait a minute. Why do I have to wait every day for this golden egg to come in? Why don't I just go out there? I think I'm going to lop the head off of that goose, and I'm just going to turn that goose upside down and dump all those eggs out so I'll have all the money now. So that next morning, he goes out, takes the golden egg from the goose, lops off the head, turns the goose upside down, nothing comes out, reaches inside the goose, there's nothing there. You see, the mistake Farmer Brown made, he assumed by killing the goose he could get all the eggs. The problem is, folks, now we're back to the cow illustration, you kill the cow, there's no more milk. You see, you need something out there that can produce milk, or what we would call income. Retirement is all about income. And the question is, what is it do you have out there right now? What type of investment do you have out there that can provide, and here's the key word, guaranteed lifetime income? Now, we're in some downturns and the market's all over the place. This should be very obvious, folks. The stock market, while yes, it pays dividends and you can pull interest and you can even spend down some of that principal, but the stock market is not the golden goose. The stock market cannot provide a reliable source, here's the key word, of guaranteed eggs every morning when you go out there to pick up those eggs. The mistake a lot of savers make is, and human nature tells us this, we get greedy. You know, we're not willing to be patient to allow things to grow. We're not willing to be patient to take things off the top instead of killing the goose or taking the cow. So what we do with the worry-free retirement, this is why we're such big proponents of what I call fixed indexed annuities, particularly those with what's called income riders. It's kind of like the goose. See, if you have a fixed indexed annuity with an income rider, what happens is when you're ready to turn on income, that's what we like to say, let's say you're age 65 or 70. We help you with all this, by the way. We help you make the decision when to turn on the income. That's a big decision. Many of you are looking at buying annuities, and yeah, anybody can sell you an annuity, but do they really understand how to coordinate that income with all the rest of your assets? Do they really understand the tax issues involved once they kick that income in? Do they really understand something what we call Roth conversions? We talked about that last week, and how to maybe turn that taxable income into tax-free income. All of those things are important to note. But most importantly, if you're dealing with Wall Street, they are not going to talk to you about guaranteed lifetime income because they don't sell those products. That's not what they do. What they're doing is selling securities products. A fixed indexed annuity is not a securities product. It is a guaranteed contract issued by an insurance company which spells out how many eggs you're going to get every morning, no pun intended, for the rest of your life. And it's guaranteed. So if you're a saver and you're worried about running out of money in retirement and you're sitting here going, golly, I mean, not only is the stock market up and down, how am I going to know exactly what kind of income I'm going to have? Well, you won't. There's no way to guarantee that. I would invite you to meet with me in person to see if a fixed indexed annuity or one with an income rider is right for you. In the meantime, here's what you can do. We got a great little brochure I wrote. It's called the Annuity Decision Guide for Savers. Check it out. You can download it free at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. If you don't have access to the internet or handy while you're thinking about it, give us a call. We'll mail you a hard copy. It's called the Annuity Decision Guide for Savers. Just call 877-499-9255. 877-499-9255. You're listening to the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be back with some closing comments you'll want to hear about our next show coming up. Stay tuned.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Do you have a 401k, IRA, thrift savings account, 403b, or lump sum pension that you'd like to move to safer territory? Did you know that all the money you see on your 401k statement isn't really yours? Depending on your overall taxable income, the government has essentially a lien on your 401k that can tax as much as 40% of your money when you go to take it out. Tony Walker calls this the 401k tax tumor. For over 33 years, retirement specialist Tony Walker has helped thousands of savers worry less about money by creating game plans to deal with your tax tumor. Get control of your retirement by controlling the taxes owed on it. Schedule a free meeting to see if you can reduce your tax tumor and provide a guaranteed income you can never outlive. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
He brought you along too fast.
It wasn't him, Charlie. It was you. You remember that night in the garden? You came down my dressing room and said, "Kid, this ain't your night. We're going for the price on Wilson." You remember that? This ain't your night. My night. I could have taken Wilson apart. So what happens? He gets the title shot outdoors in a ballpark, and what do I get? A one-way ticket to Palookaville. You was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked out for me a little bit. You should have taken care of me just a little bit so I wouldn't have to take them dives for the short-end money.
Well, I had some bets down for you. You saw some money.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
Oh, that famous line that Marlon Brando spouted out, I could have been somebody. Our theme is woulda, shoulda, coulda. So as we think about this particular show, we think about Tony Walker Financial. What is really our mission? Our mission is to help savers as best we can not have any woulda, shoulda, coulda moments, not have that fact that many people meet with me and they get in retirement and look back and they think I could have been somebody financially, of course. So maybe that's you. Maybe you feel like you're out here fighting with the financial world and you're in the financial ring with nobody in your financial corner. I would like to be that person. At least we can just meet. During that first meeting, it's really simple. All you do is you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You would be meeting with me in person or at least discussing your situation by phone. We can either talk by phone or you can meet in the Louisville or Bowling Green, Kentucky office. Once we meet, then I provide a free assessment. That's what happens at the second appointment. So at least you see something in writing from me as far as suggestions on how to avoid the mistakes many savers are making. Take advantage of that. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Or give us a call at 877-499-9255. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's program. I look forward to seeing you next week when we finish up with the 7 common mistakes savers are making. We're going to cover 4 through 7, some really good stuff. I'll talk to you next week, but you remember between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free.
If you got it, you don't need it. If you need it, you don't got it. You don't get it, shame on you. Funny, funny, funny what money can do. Them that have it get more of it. The less they need it, the more they love it. And it sticks to them like glue. Funny, funny, funny what money can do.